I'm looking for something really big, though. What is the biggest freaking problem with our system right now that is the reason that so damn many people are in prison right now?
Overload, and they push it through without really fairly representing a lot of people.
Yeah, but why?
We're prosecuting crimes that are stupid.
It's racism and other sorts of identity biases. It's ageism, racism, sexism. All this shit is the reason that we've got this. What I'm trying to do is say, like, the system, the structure of the system needs some tinkering, but I wouldn't want to leave here saying I'm not satisfied with the tinkering that we're proposing here, because it still doesn't compare to this terrible, massive amounts of injustice that are going on now. I mean, it's huge right now. But we're talking about transformations in these other spheres, and I just want to remind us that that's going to be a major component in making these things a lot easier to do.
And we're quite obviously not talking about groups of invested interest in a prison-industrial complex,
right?
Which is of overwhelming significance,
so, yeah.
As well as the competence of defense attorneys being entirely contingent upon the wealth of the defendant.
Right. Nobody gains from having more prisoners in jail except if it's actually in reality going to play out in terms of us being more secure and safe. That's the only possible benefit that we've got to allow to be perceived by the system or by the people or by any actors in the system as far as the outcomes that we're looking for. Only benefit is our own common safety. Nobody makes too much money. Nobody, no industries are really fostered, with any imperative to do it. So, the last thing that we really need to talk about is, okay, I've been through this process. It's been, I've had an advocate, just like defense attorneys now, where we've got better advocates. That's another thing that I almost was assuming, but we got to mention that we've got better advocacy. I know my rights better. It was much harder for them to just sort of railroad me, and they weren't able to do that. So I got a fair trial, and they had the bloody knife that they found in my hand while I was sleeping on top of the criminal, or I'm sorry, on top of the victim, and I had earlier that day said I'm going to murder that person tonight, etc., etc. I'm absolutely guilty. I've absolutely done it. Now what? What do we? Yeah. So our instant. What we want to do is I think focus as little on this notion of punishment as much on this notion of corrections in an honest sense of that term as possible. That's the general approach that we want to take to this sort of punitive function. Now, we need to discuss what's a difficult philosophical issue, which is that concept of punishment. What gives us where do we get off punishing? Do you have a comment on that?
You're just assuming that if people that it's just a deterrent. The idea that other people will be deterred if they realize there is a punishment if they do. Yeah. Which is a real force.
It's a very effective force. If I could interject a little bit of psychology. Psychology, like especially the capital punishment specifically, that people recognize things immediately. It's like the whole, you push a button, you get shocked. That's why you learn your lesson. But if you push the button and you get shocked 5 minutes later, it doesn't stay as well. So you know that there's a punishment, but you're able to rationalize around that. Unless you know that if you killed someone and you knew that as soon as that some lightning bolt was going to strike and you were going to die, you wouldn't kill somebody because you know it's like mutually assured destruction. You know what's going to happen if you do that. But someone just as easily can say, well, if I stab this guy and the cops are down the street, I can break and I might make it away. Then there's that's the same difference.
See, the difference with capital punishment is that, as far as I've read, the little I've read and to do with this, is that what's a deterrent isn't the severity of punishment that you get if you get caught, but the certainty of getting caught. So the idea is definitely stupid because all it does is raise the severity, and it's like I'm going to be in jail. If they think they're going to go to jail, they're not going to do it the first place.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be about the death penalty. It could be stealing candy.
Well, okay, all right, but something needs to happen. Do you want to keep talking, or? Something needs to happen as a result, right? I mean, and there is a deterrent factor in just knowing that something's going to happen, even if it isn't considered punishment. What we need to do is manage for our own security, right? Now let's say we've got someone now the murder is a tough one. If it was a random murder and we don't know who this person might kill next, first of all, we need a way to figure out what is the actual likelihood. They've gone through this whole system and we've determined that they did this thing. Now we need somebody, and it shouldn't just be the jury that went through the trial. It should be some other group of people who have some relevant expertise, but also an interest in being able to come to the proper the best, the most agreeable solution to what to do with this person. Okay, so we're going to look at it. Now, let's say a body of 6 people who are not only experts and have some kind of expertise in the field of psychology, sociology, human behavior, but who are also elected and represent the people. 6 of them are convinced that this person is absolutely never going to kill somebody again, no matter what, for whatever reason, and I'm not sure what they would come up with, but they might. Now do we get to put this person in jail or put any other restrictions on them, especially if we've already decided that you don't punish people?
Would you have something like probation?
Maybe.
I don't know.
I think social science is to that point where...
No, where we could be sure that they're not going to. No, but is our court system, is our justice system ever going to be to the point where we can justify putting people away when we have no reason to believe they're ever going to do this again?
I think maybe.
They did it in the past. If we put them away and there's no reason to believe whatsoever, and most people don't murder more than once. And I think that that's probably true about not just people who get caught. It's enough for what, though? It's right, but you're just talking in terms of punishment, though. If all we can do,
if the cop is gonna do it once and he's gonna be out of the system, how come this murder gets, what I'm trying to say?
Right. So is it enough to be able to say? Now, it's clear in our society, if you murder somebody, we're not going to have any choice but to put you somewhere where you can't do it again. Does that justify doing it? It may very well. I don't like the idea, but I think that what you're saying is actually what we might have to settle on, just like with the cop. I don't like the idea of punishment, and I don't want it to be considered punishment, but the fact is that you were warned beforehand. We absolutely know that you did it. And now we don't know what to do. We don't know if it's okay. We don't feel confident letting you out there again because you did it once, and we told you couldn't.
And we're looking at like a woman whose husband's beating her, and she kills him to end it. There's many things she could have tried or did try.
And that's exactly the kind of thing. It's a non-systemic crime. It wasn't because of any kind of persistent factor other than the fact that there was this exacerbation that was not her fault, and for some reason or another, she couldn't find any other way out of it. Now, hopefully, we won't have this problem because we'll have all these other institutions in society that this woman can turn to. But we can't say that it won't come up. We have to pretty much expect that it will. Now, does this woman go to jail for the rest of her life or for any period, and how would we decide that period? Even though, really, we have a pretty good certainty that the reason she did it was because of the person that she killed was this husband who was beating her. And we really don't think she's going to do it again. Maybe we don't let her get married again because those are the circumstances in which it happened. But we want to do the least coercive thing in order to ensure that it doesn't happen again. It's kind of goofy, but now let's think of the child molester. Now our committee can with an almost 100% certainty, possibly in a certain case, say, well, this person who's been convicted of serially molesting children will do it again. But also, to an almost certainty, they've probably never committed any other crime and never would. They'll commit this crime over and over again, but they won't hurt adults. And they won't do anything else to other children, but they definitely won't do anything wrong to adults. Now, how do we deal with this? It's going to be a punishment if we say that they can never interact with adults again. That's managing beyond what they actually did.
I think we have to look at a more macro. So we've ruled out the deterrent idea.
No, there's some deterrent effect to this. To knowing that if I molest children and I get caught, I'll never be able to encounter a child again.
But you're as good off as if you'd never. But the choice, but it's not worse than if you just never molested children. You know what I mean? You want it to be not cruel, but not a pleasant idea, so that people don't want to get themselves in that situation.
Right, but really, we'd rather come up with all the other ways that we'd want to condition, if you will, people to not do this stuff. Give everybody all the other options and all the reasons to not do this. And who knows what kind of clever ideas we'd come up with for ways to actually have people not molest children, have ways for people to not rape. We've got a lot of progress in a lot of fields that are fairly just scientific, and social movements might not even have much say in, but somebody might come up and say, well, here's actually some tools for solutions. I have no idea what they would be, but really there might be something there.